Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome expert interview. I am so excited for today's interviewee. It's Nicole Jardim. She is the period girl. She's the period expert. And I think this is such an important topic. It is still relatively taboo to talk about this stuff. But as you know, that's kind of the focus of my channel is getting women's health and pelvic health topics out into the open. And so Nicole is really the gal for that. So I'm just going to share a brief little introduction to Nicole, and then I'm going to have her take it away. So Nicole is a certified women's health coach, and she's the creator of Fix Your Period, a series of programs that empower women to reclaim their hormone health using a method that combines simplicity and sass, which I love. So her work has impacted thousands of women around the world in effectively addressing issues like PMS, PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome, infertility, amenorrhea, and more. She is the co-host of The Period Party, a top-rated podcast on iTunes, and she's the co-creator of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's Hormone Health Continuing Education course. That's a mouthful. But the basic nutshell of all this is that, Nicole, there's even more credentials and or education behind even that. She really knows her stuff. And the reason I really love what she does is, one reason is because we actually trained in one of the same programs, the Women's Health Institute with Jessica Drummond. So we trained in that program together. I think we were actually maybe in the same class even, the first round. Is that?
First round? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep. That was back when it was actually called, it had a different name. So I always stumble over the new name of the program.
Pelvic health.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, we trained under the same mentor, a common mentor of ours who I love, Jessica Drummond. I have another interview with her. And I love that Nicole really addresses the root of the problem, not just the problems themselves. So not just the PCOS or the PMS, but the root, which so often goes back to nutrition and all of that. So we have so much to discuss. But I really just want to start, Nicole, with maybe a very brief kind of intro to how you got started in this journey.
Oh, yeah, girl. I know. I feel like I can talk about that for ages, so I'll make it brief. I was one of those girls who had horrible periods as a teenager, and I remember talking to my friends about this, and nobody seemed to have the issues that I had. So I was like, okay, that's the first sign something's wrong. But I had the kind of periods where the cramps were so bad I'd be laid up for 2 or 3 days. I would be throwing up from the pain. They were super heavy, so I didn't get to go to school like 2 or 3 days a month. I remember being in school and wearing underwear and a pair of short shorts underneath my over the underwear underneath the school uniform because I was so scared of leaking. I mean, it was just traumatic to be a teenager as me. And that it got progressively worse. And then I ended up going to see my doctor, and she decided that I should go on the pill. And I was really excited to go on the pill because I was going to be part of all the cool kids club, all the girls who were on the pill. And the pill I felt like was a panacea. I mean, it helped me so much. Everything disappeared. So my periods got super light. Pain completely disappeared. Of course, I stopped ovulating, which I did not know at the time. So all the problems I had disappeared, but they were replaced soon with a whole bunch of other issues. And ultimately, that led me on this journey. I saw so many doctors for the chronic UTIs and the yeast infections and the gut health issues and the hair loss and the skin problems. I had melasma. It was really bad. And it just went on, and they were so seemingly unrelated. That was what was so frustrating, because all these doctors did not ever say to me, oh, it could be this birth control pill that you're on, because you're not on any other medication. There's nothing else environmentally that could be causing all these problems. I had joint pain so bad I could barely walk down the stairs. I was like 21. Oh, it was crazy. And so ultimately I saw an acupuncturist. He was the one who said to me, oh, I think it could be the pill. Light bulb, holy cow. I never even considered it. And so I went off immediately and I started changing my diet according to his principles of Chinese medicine, and everything shifted dramatically. And so that just led me on this quest. And I just thought, wow, if I was able to help myself in my early to mid 20s, there has to be a way for me to help other women. And so that's how I ended up going to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and then finding Jessica and training with her and you and going on to do this work, because that was the goal. If I could just help one woman, and here I am.
It's amazing. And I think that so many of us can probably relate to going on the pill. And I know one reason I went on the pill when I was 16 was for acne, you know?
Yes.
And
yep.
and then I also think that many of my issues that I've had, I'm not getting into my issues right now, but I also think that I have some similarities to your journey as well. So it's fascinating stuff. But today I really wanted to talk about period pain, which obviously you suffered with significantly. I actually just received a message from a Femme Fusion friend of mine who said, I am having horrible period pain today, and luckily she was able to find a yoga program to do that helped her. But I said, oh, it's so interesting because I'm talking with the expert in this subject. So it was perfect timing. My question for you is, how common is period pain? Is this a very common thing for women? And also, just kind of what are the root causes of this that you see?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like painful periods or, discomfort associated with our period well, just so everyone knows, the technical term is dysmenorrhea. But it's actually the most prevalent women's health issue in the world, believe it or not. And it's estimated that about 50 to 55% of women who are menstruating, they suffer from dysmenorrhea. And then 10% have such painful periods that they're basically incapacitated for 1 to 3 days each month. So it's a huge number of women. I mean, like we're talking about basically half of the population of women. And I actually think that that's really underreported. Yeah. Wouldn't you agree with that? I
would agree with that, because I think that people think it's normal to have painful periods. And my new understanding from some of the work that we've studied together and also from personal experience is that it doesn't actually have to be normal. Like sometimes a period can just sneak up on you and you can be like, oh, well, that's fun. Like I have, that's great. It actually happened to me just the other, I am very sporadic about taking my supplements, and recently I was like, I'm doing it. I'm getting on board with my supplements, and I've got a good, regimen, and I had been doing it for about a week and a half or so, and my period just came day 28. It was perfect. It was the most perfect period, and I thought it's so interesting because I feel like whenever I am really on track, my period and also managing my stress, my periods are a lot lighter. So maybe that's part of the reason it could be underreported, is that people just think it's supposed to hurt. Like that's totally normal.
I say this all the time. It's so true what you're saying, that these things like period pain or irregular periods or whatever, insert the symptom, is, statistically normal, but it's not biologically normal. And so we've completely, in our society, normalized a lot of symptoms that women experience. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned, really unfortunate. But, I did want to say too, in addition to what I was saying earlier about, the symptoms that we experience, is that it's not just period pain, right? It's like nausea and then potentially vomiting and diarrhea and sweating and headaches, especially menstrual migraines. So all of these things are, potentially going to happen to someone when they're getting their period. And this could be a few hours to 2 to 3 days into the cycle. And it's just not right.
No.
Totally right at all.
Right.
We should be suffering just because we're women. It's insane. And, the other thing too, I think that we don't realize as well is that just minimal cramping, mild pain to the severe debilitating pain where you need pain medication, sometimes even opioids, or time off from daily activities, is actually, like the span. I feel like it's a spectrum. Yeah. And in fact, I wanted to say this too. It's one of the top causes for women to miss work besides sick children. Mm-hmm. And we don't even talk about it. I mean, endometriosis research is just, it's so, it's so in infant stages still. I mean, we're still not really doing a lot with, I mean, now finally it's picking up steam, and I want to talk about that too, but, we're just not talking about it. So, in terms of the causes, I wanted to clarify two things. So there's primary dysmenorrhea and then there's secondary dysmenorrhea. And so primary is basically just related solely to our periods. It's not caused by an external, like another condition, like a secondary condition. And then secondary is due to like another problem. So whether that's pelvic inflammatory disease or endometriosis or some other condition like that. And so I really think it's important for us to figure out what that is, like what's causing it, so that we can determine what our course of treatment is. And so in terms of the causes of painful periods, we have three of them. We have a hormonal imbalance caused by the dysregulation of the HPA axis, which is that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And that, of course, I feel like that's the main axis. Yeah. But it involves the thyroid and the gonads as well. So that's the thyroid and our ovaries for women, and that's the testes in men. But all of it's connected, right? So it's all talking to each other. We've got this hormone superhighway going on, and we just don't realize that. And I think, again, like to come back to what we were talking about in conventional medicine, like for me, my experience was that everything was sort of siloed, and doctors weren't looking at my body as in the bigger picture. And so ultimately, that's why these problems began to run rampant. And so for this, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, this is the control system for our hormones. And hormonal imbalances can be a cause for period pain and then lead to conditions that cause period pain like endometriosis and adenomyosis and even uterine fibroids. So that's the first thing. The second is structural issues, which I feel like is where you come in. And, so there might be uterine misalignment caused by physical trauma, like fall, emotional trauma, abdominal surgery, like a C-section. And then, of course, the uterus out of alignment, like I was saying. What else is there? Oh, yeah. And then endometriosis, fibroids, prolonged standing, high impact exercise. I think we just sort of underestimate that all of these things could potentially impact our physical health. Yeah. And then the third one is inflammation in the body. So when I talk about inflammation, I'm not talking about like a scrape that we get in our leg or something like that. I'm talking about the inflammation internally that's caused by stress or a poor diet. And it's not so much that the inflammation is causing the pain, but the prostaglandins, they're hormone-like substances. So they're released by the body to help the uterus contract at menstruation time. But what happens is some women have more pro-inflammatory prostaglandins than others, and this causes potentially more period pain. So those are like the three. I don't think I knew that. So the uterus, the prostaglandins actually cause the uterus to contract during menstruation? Yes, they do. And then so if you have extra because of the inflammation, that's going to cause it to contract even more. Is that? Say that again, sorry? So if you have extra prostaglandins in your body because of the inflammation, that's going to cause the uterine contractions to happen even more strongly? Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And that's usually linked back to extra inflammation. So what I found, and I wanted to talk a little bit about endometriosis, but basically with the prostaglandins, what's so interesting is that there are pro-inflammatory and then anti-inflammatory prostaglandins. And so what happens is if we have an imbalance between omega-6s and omega-3s, a lot of the time, if we have too high of the omega-6s, which can be pro-inflammatory, we tend to have more of those pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. That's where they actually come from. And so this is what I think is one at the root for so many of us, because our diets have changed so drastically over the last 100 years, and they've become so omega-6 pro-inflammatory. And so really what we have to do is work to bring back balance between the omega-6s and the omega-3s ratio. So would you say that that's one of the primary things people need to potentially look into if they're experiencing a lot of pain with their periods, is the omega balance? Yes, for sure. Yeah, I feel, first of all, I want to say, I think that, again, coming back to what we were saying about, being a woman and having to suffer, I just think that we actually have so much more control over this than we think. And, I think there's no question that the inflammation contributes to this higher sensitivity to pain. So helping your clients get inflammation under control and then balancing estrogen and progesterone levels can make periods a lot less painful. And so it's been shown that, once we get the omega-6, omega-3 ratio under control, then we're able to have less physical pain. So the solution is to start to think about what foods you're consuming, right? So the high omega-6 foods are things like the industrial seed oils. So we've got like canola oil and corn oil and soybean oil and peanut oil. So all of these oils that basically every single thing is cooked in, especially at restaurants, contribute to this problem. Whereas things like olive oil and grass-fed butter and coconut oil and ghee and lard, those are more omega-3 rich. So we want to focus on cooking our food with those instead. And I think just removing those vegetable oils from our diets could actually be a huge step for us in bringing that omega-3, omega-6 ratio into balance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly say, I believe my face is completely frozen in a really ridiculous position on the screen. So if that's true, I'm sorry, everyone who's watching. I see that in my picture, my face is frozen, but that's okay. I'm sure we can be heard. So you're not frozen, Nicole. You look fine. I think we'll just the show will go on. Yeah, I'll have a frozen face, but yeah, so I really would like to maybe give people some take-home tips, and that was an amazing first one, is just sort of cutting back and maybe replacing with more of the omega-3 rich oils. Is that one of your first kind of suggestions, kind of a blanket? Is it safe to make that a blanket suggestion for people in your way of thinking?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I think that would be our first step. And for a lot of us, unfortunately, that's cutting back on eating out at restaurants that cook their food with canola oil, especially because it's genetically modified as well, which adds a whole other layer of problems.
Yeah. So that potentially eating less at restaurants, or just being very selective in the restaurants, skipping the bottled salad dressings with soybean oil and maybe making your own with olive oil, or those kinds of suggestions. Is there anything else that you can think of that would be something that you tell your clients all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would suggest the other thing. Well, first of all, I mean, like, if we're gonna go back to basics, nutrient-rich diet full of organic fruit and vegetables, grass-fed meats and butter. I'm a big fan of organ meats. I am for my clients. I don't love liver. I take liver pills because I can't take the liver. Eggs, if you're not allergic to them, so farm-raised eggs, and then fermented foods. So all of those, bringing those into your diet, of course, can be really a game changer. And then I think that also thinking about something like nightshade vegetables. So nightshade vegetables can actually contribute to inflammation and pain in some people, which is why it's sometimes suggested that people who have rheumatoid arthritis, for instance, don't include those in their diet. And so for people who have painful periods, they might consider removing those too. And then dairy is a whole other one.
And real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the nightshade vegetables would include eggplant and peppers and tomatoes. What am I missing? Potatoes, white potatoes.
Yes, so exactly, tomatoes, white potatoes, tomatillos, red peppers, green peppers, yellow peppers, those kinds of foods.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sorry, you were talking about dairy then as well.
Yes, dairy's next, but eggplant as well. I just thought about that one too. That's like the biggest nightshade. And then dairy sensitivities. So that is, almost across the board. When I cut dairy out of my diet, I had no period pain. So I really think that that's critical. And a lot of the time, if you grew up having tonsillitis or tonsil issues or chronic ear infections, you likely have a dairy problem. And you really want to make sure that you get the dairy out of your diet. The biggest problem is a protein called A1 casein. And so that is the one that can be problematic. So it does some crazy thing in our digestive tract and stimulates the production of histamines and those inflammatory cytokines. And so those are the ones that, again, cause issues with, what was I going to say again? Yeah, sorry. Those are the ones that cause issues with that inflammation in the prostaglandins. So histamines, again, if you think about that, think of like sneezing and itchy, watery eyes, that kind of thing. So dairy can do that to you. So that's like a big part of it. And then, I think it's also important too for people if they're not allergic, like if they potentially are allergic to dairy or the A1 casein, they can potentially experiment with goat and sheep milk because those don't have the A1 casein in it. So just something to consider if you're really not wanting to take the dairy out of your diet.
I will say that I personally I am sensitive to casein as well, and I have been cow dairy free for many, many years now, and I can eat now that my gut health has improved with lots of fermented vegetables and all the great things you're talking about. Really trying my best, certainly not perfect at it, but things have improved, and I'm now able to tolerate goat dairy without any problem, and sheep dairy as well. So yeah, it's possible.
It is, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not only for period pain either, right? I think like your period's heavy, fibroids, endometriosis, acne, PMS symptoms, sore breasts. I mean, those are all signs as well that there's potential dairy intolerance. So yes, there is hope on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, definitely, like it's true. So it's all connected. Everything in our body is connected. I talk about that on my YouTube channel all the time. But we're talking really about foundationally, if your gut health is out of whack, it's going to create, and then if there's inflammation in your body, these prostaglandins are going to potentially make your period pain worse, and it also potentially it will contribute to your hormones being imbalanced. Am I getting that kind of nutshell version correct? So you got a hormone issue and then the prostaglandin inflammatory issue as well.
Exactly.
Potentially based on what you're eating. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So those are huge. And then, I mean, the final thing, and, obviously people are always like, oh, Nicole, you're such a bearer of bad news. But truly, like, what can I say? The sugar. So if we're going to eat sugar, we should expect to have pain because sugar, of course, is directly linked to the inflammatory response in our body. And over time, it's just going to get worse. And so if we cut sugar out, which I've had a lot of clients do, we'll see a massive drop in our period pain. I mean, 100%. And so we really have to decide whether that's something that we really want or we don't want. Do we want the cake and the cookies, or do we want to live an abundant life that is pain-free?
Yeah.
So I think that ultimately we have to make that decision, but I know it can be really challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And then micronutrients, do you find that is helpful for people besides me as well with their periods too, just getting the right supplementation program?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. So basically, there are a couple of different things. I think magnesium is huge. We're chronically deficient in magnesium. And so ultimately what happens is, we over time, we're sort of just operating at a deficit, so to speak. So yes, magnesium is critical. I would highly recommend someone bring magnesium into their diet, obviously through lots of leafy greens, but a supplement I think is almost across the board necessary. So magnesium, I use magnesium citrate. Actually at nights, I use the Natural Calm. I've also used magnesium glycinate, which tends to be better absorbed than the magnesium the magnesium citrate. So that would be my recommendation, either the glycinate or the magnesium citrate. And then the B6 supplementation, I think, is critical. I mean, we would want to do like a full B complex and maybe some extra B6 supplementation, just because B6 has been shown to really help with not only physical pain, but PMS and a whole bunch of other symptoms that are all connected. So yeah, I would say the magnesium, a B complex. I'm a big fan of cod liver oil. It's full of vitamin A, vitamin D, and then the omega-3s as well. So those are the ones that I would recommend. I think that a lot of people do fish oil, or they'll do krill oil as well. So those ones could work too.
That's great. So
Yeah.
is nutrition is really the cornerstone kind of foundation of your practice that you use with your patients. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean definitely. And when we think about our food, I mean you truly are what you eat, right? Well, you are what you eat and what you can absorb.
Yeah.
And so that's something too. I mean, obviously I know we don't have a ton of time, but when we're talking about our gut health, talk about an epidemic. I feel like we're in a state now where our guts are completely under attack, whether it's the microbiome or it's our gut linings. There are a lot of people with gut health issues. In fact, that I think it's like a $350 billion industry or something like that in the U.S. It's nuts. But our gut health plays a huge role. So if we have gut inflammation, which many people do, then that will likely lead to period pain, and because it's just inflammation in general, and it's all connected. So I think we really have to think about what we can do to support our gut health in addition to eating the way we should be eating, and then of course supplementing appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have any physical practices that you do with people? I actually looked on your blog and it made me laugh because I loved the article. It was about vaginal steaming, which it was written by one of your apprentices. And I laugh only because I actually put this in my book that I wrote, Lady Bits. And it's just a small piece. It's certainly, I mean, just sort of as an aside almost, but it's an interesting practice that is an old practice that has been sort of revived from my understanding. And I saw it on your blog and I thought, oh, wow, Nicole's talking about vaginal steaming. So that's where you soothe the muscles and the tissues and just sort of soothe everything with a nice little bit of heat. And so that's something that, I don't know, I just felt a little connection there with you, girl. But
I'm obsessed with it. I wrote about it probably 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Oh, did
and then
you?
One of my apprentices, when she submitted the blog post, I was like, awesome, because it's just like one of those things that really helps a lot of women, but then it's been so ostracized.
Well, it has, and people don't like to hear about it or talk about it. But the thing is, steam and heat, of course, it's relaxing, it's soothing, and what a way to, I mean, just direct application essentially it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. If you're having pain, put some direct application of heat, and steam is so nice way to really penetrate the skin and the tissues. So yeah, I loved that one. Is there anything else that you would recommend to people as kind of just a comfort measure?
Oh yeah, for sure. So there are a couple things. Obviously, yes, the vaginal steaming, that steam and heat. Taking a magnesium bath, like an Epsom salt bath, can really, really help bring your pain down too. I'm also a big fan of, just doing your own pelvic massage as well, a la like Maya abdominal therapy, which you can see lots of videos online. You can see a practitioner. I also use peppermint essential oil, just a few drops added to like a body lotion or coconut oil, and just massaged onto the abdomen and your lower back. Really helps. There's actually even 1 or 2 studies that show that peppermint oil can really help. And then there's an herbal thing called cramp relief. It's RELEAF.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use that a few days before your cycle and during cramps, and it could be potentially quite helpful. I found that to be helpful as well. So that's another one. And then the Clary Calm, the women's monthly blend from doTERRA. So it has a roller. You can just roll it on your abdomen each day for like a few days leading up to your period and then during your period. And those work really well too. And I was also thinking about castor oil packs, which obviously are not meant to use during your period, but in the times that you're not bleeding throughout your cycle, 1 or 2 times a week, doing a castor oil pack. I mean, I noticed dramatic changes for my period pain a number of years ago when I used those too. And so have a lot of my clients. So that's something to consider as well.
And the castor oil pack helps aid in detoxification, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does so many things. If you read, there's an old book written by, I can't remember the doctor's name, but it was like the Castor Oil Miracle or something like that. And the things that he describes in there, I'm like, what? So I feel like, yeah, the castor oil, talk about a panacea.
Yeah.
That stuff is legit. And so, yeah, it really does. It does so much in terms of like that inflammatory response, scar tissue. I mean, across the board, I feel like it's kind of one of those little miracle things.
And to do your castor oil pack, you soak your wool or just some like a washcloth even in castor oil, correct? It's been a long time since I've done this. And then you apply it to your abdomen, your lower abdomen area. And then I can't remember, do you maybe put like a towel and then a warm pack, like a hot water bottle on top?
Yeah. So exactly. So you soak this piece of material. It could be an old T-shirt. It could be like a piece of wool, which they'll send you as a kit. You can find it on Amazon. In castor oil, lay it on your abdomen, and then unfortunately, you put a piece of plastic saran wrap over it because castor oil is very messy. Just make sure it doesn't touch your skin. And then put a hot water bottle or a heating pad of some kind over that and just hang out for 20 to 30 minutes. And so I would recommend doing it like 1 to 2 times a week, just again, for the times where you're not getting your period, and see how it helps. Just so everyone knows, it can cause diarrhea. So because castor oil, it's a laxative. So just if you notice that, then you want to reduce the amount of time that you're doing it for and the amount of times you actually do it. So I would reduce it to like 1 time a week or 1 every other week, and maybe only do it for like 10 to 15 minutes. So you're going to have to find your sweet spot.
That's awesome. So I love this. So we have sort of some baseline recommendations for treating the whole system. If you're having period pain, it's not necessarily normal. Let's see if I can put this all in together here. So it's not necessarily normal. It may be typical, but it's not normal. It's not something you necessarily need to deal with, at least at the level you are if it's intense. Look at your nutrition. Look at the inflammation in your body. Cut back on the omega-6. Increase the omega-3. Look at your gut health, and then comfort measures, including castor oil packs when you're not on your period, and then just maybe some vaginal steaming when you are on your period, or Epsom salts baths if you're having severe cramps. That can be helpful. Peppermint essential oil, I love that. I'm an essential oil user as well, so that's been very helpful for me too. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to leave people with? Anything that I'm missing, Nicole?
Well, I was just going to say the final thing was orgasm.
Oh, well, hey.
Hey, I mean, I got to throw it out there. We don't even realize that, orgasm releases all of these happy feel-good chemicals that actually reduce physical pain and make us feel amazing. So if you can muster up the energy, whether it's by yourself or with your partner or whatever you want to do, just do that. It really, really helps. And again, like it's one of the more natural ways to help ease pain.
I love it. Well, we're all about natural here, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. Maybe not the first thing on everyone's mind when they're having pain, but that's good to know that it could help. So well, thank you, Nicole. This was awesome. Some very good takeaways. And how can people reach you if they have specific questions?
Sure. So you can go to my website. It's NicoleJardim.com, and I've got a blog with tons of information on there. And then, of course, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter. My handle for all of those is Nicole M, like Madeleine Jardim. Yeah, I'm all over the place. So come find me.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much for being on again. I really appreciate you taking the time. And everyone, check out her stuff. Nicole has some amazing information. So thank you again, Nicole, and I'll sign off for us. See you guys.
All right.